Hey everyone, this is Magic Love recording for the MTG Noob. Doing a little something different here. Gatecrash just got fully spoiled, and just going to take a look at some of the interesting cards I think might impact Legacy to some degree. So just going to walk through not all of them, since I'm sure I'll miss something, or something will turn out to be a sleeper, but, at first blush, these are the ones I think might find their way either in sideboards or main decks of various builds, or, who knows, even star in their own decks. So, anyway, starting off, we'll take a look at our first one, Blind Obedience. This is an interesting little card in that it's a relatively cheap one white, one colorless enchantment. Has extort on it, so it does have the ability to, ping your opponent for little tendrils. They lose a life, you gain a life action. But it also has this Kismet ability of artifacts and creatures, not lands and anything else, but they enter the battlefield tapped. So, a couple interesting applications for this card. Thinking it might be an interesting inclusion to Enchantress against like affinity or fast creature builds. Since it does offer a little bit of extra time, since their creatures are coming in to play tapped, and especially against affinity, everything comes into play tapped, it really hurts them. It does give you a little late game reach too, to be able to, with that deck, if you're drawing bunches of enchantments, to be able to cast them and maybe finish the game that way. And who knows, maybe this is the card that makes Stasis, the second coming of the Stasis deck, viable, since Kismet is a 4-drop and doesn't give you extort, and this does. Who knows? It's a long shot. I know I'll brew with it just for the heck of it, as it should be pretty cheap and should be fun to play with, so we'll give that a shot. Next up, we've got Gideon, Champion of Justice. This is, as most Planewalkers comes out, and they do make a pretty big impression, since Planewalkers are inherently pretty powerful. I'm not sure where this guy fits in. Honestly, I just don't think he's better than Gideon 1.0. I mean, to come out at 4 and go up to 15 automatically, he's got to be coming in against a deck like Belcher that hit Empty the Warrens, or, Elves, that just went off with a couple glimpses. The problem was both of those decks are going to win before turn 4. And even if you do, tick him up that turn and they just untap and swing at you and kill you, you don't even get to use his ultimate. So I just don't know if this is going to be a great answer to those kind of decks. I'm sure White will find a home for this in grindy kind of decks where, someone plays a couple creatures, you put this out, ticks up to 6, you can start swinging at them, but eventually you tick it up until you have a, an Elspeth 2-0 kind of effect where you're wiping the board, leaving this, and then just beating them down with a decent sized Planeswalker. So who knows? We'll see if this makes an impact. I don't think it'll be huge, if anything. Next, we're on to blue and Enter the Infinite. I mean, pretty much this card is close to Wizards, I think, is going to print a card that just says, you win. For 12 mana, you're pretty much drawing everything. You get an immediate Reliquary Tower effect, so you're not worried about discarding the end of turn. And you do get to put a card back on top of your library, so you don't deck if they make you draw a card or something like that. This card, I don't expect to see it in Show and Tell Omniscience builds, because, why not just put Emrakul out? I mean, this seems like just a huge win more. You Show and Tell Omniscience, you then play this card, and you're going to put an Emrakul or a, Living Wish for Petals or something, or I'm sorry, Burning Wish for Petals or something. But you can pretty much do that anyway without having this being a dead card in your hand, since you can't Show and Tell this. So I think it might be too frustrating to pack these in there, take spaces from other cards that are Show and Tell viable, since this only combos out with Omniscience, and even then, it will win if you cast it, obviously, but if you can't get Show and Tell for Omniscience going, it's like a 3-card combo, and that tends to be very unpopular in Legacy. Interestingly, this could be a card in Dream Halls. So curious if people will start brewing that. I've played against that a few times in my Legacy career. Interesting build. It's very tricky to play, but this might be an interesting style, um, card for that kind of a thing, since it's not an X spell. But I don't expect to see it in High Tide or Show and Tell, as I expect. They've got other finishers that are better filled than this. It is worth noting also that in black, Devour Flesh is another Edict style effect, a Diabolic Edict effect, where it is a 2 mana, 1 colorless, 1 black instant. Target player sacks a creature and gains life equal to its toughness. So interesting in that, unlike an Edict, in which target player just sacrifices a creature, or Innocent Blood, where it's a both effect. This can be used defensively. I mean, this might be used to get rid of a Bob that's about to reveal something and kill you, or this has a little more reach to it. And it could just be Edicts 5 through 8, who knows? But this does give Diabolic Edict style attrition decks a vast multiple of Edict style effects, which could be push them over the top. We'll see. But certainly this on a Isochron Scepter could be a little frustrating to play against with a creature-based deck. We'll see if this finds its way into that kind of a deck in Legacy. Moving on into red, about the only thing I see making it out of here into Legacy builds would be Skullcrack. I mean, it's obviously not better than Incinerate. It's only damage to player, so there's better 1 red, 3 damage to player, but it does have the Torment style effect here, in that players can't gain life and damage can't be prevented, both end of turn effects. So who knows? Maybe this comes in as a sideboard card against life gain types of decks, or decks that are looking to prevent damage. Not that that's the way out that most people fight against. Red deck wins, but who knows? This might be a very interesting sideboard to answer anything that comes along the lines of those types of sideboard answers to red deck wins. So who knows? This, I'm sure, will be experimented with, and we'll see if it finds a home in that kind of build. Skipping green, because I didn't really see anything in green that looks to add much to the Legacy scene, onto the multicolored. Irelia, the War Leader. I've heard some discussion about this kind of replacing the Hasty Guy in Dredge's main deck for the insta win. If it gave the army if it gave the army haste, probably. Since it doesn't, I don't expect this to be found in either Dredge or Reanimator builds. Certainly I expect to see it in Commander, but that's a different story. So pretty powerful, a pretty limited bomb. Certainly, I don't expect to see this as a target for cheating in Legacy. Now, Aurelia's Fury, on the other hand, this is a card I can get behind. I think this might have a place in Zoo, and here's why. I think it gives Zoo decks something they pretty well lack. I mean, it's an X spell. Zoo's never really gonna have too much in play. But what it does do is, say Zoo, late game hits this for 5, needing to break through. They get through a blocker, or they do 2 or 3 damage, 2 to 2 creatures on the opponent's side of the board, and 1 to that player. They tap the creatures and silence the player. So this could be a very interesting solution to some of the things that vex Zoo. I don't know if it'll be enough to make that, in my opinion, tier 1 again, but it is interesting that, I'm sure this will be done for non-lethal, just to silence and tap opponent's creatures and sneak through that Tarmogoyf for Lone Lion or Curd Ape or Wild Cattle or something, and maybe do that extra, couple points of damage to the player. So we'll see if this finds a home, but I expect this to be brewed in a fair amount of Zoo builds, and we'll see if it makes the cut. And speaking of potential additions to Zoo-style builds, another Planeswalker comes at us, Domini Raid. Interesting in that, comes in for 3, so potentially, a 2-drop with acceleration or a 3-drop. And this could fit pretty well into something like Maverick if they splash red, or Big Zoo. But, you know, it's a way to get a little bit of card advantage by keep ticking him up and finding extra creatures. And his second ability to provide a little bit of extra reach in creature removal should be interesting. So we'll see if this guy makes the cut. Don't expect Assault to be used often, but this is a cheap enough planeswalker that anytime a 3-drop comes in and has a good tick-up ability, I expect people to brew it. Quick note on this guy. I've heard people say this is, you know, the second coming of Dark Confidant or Bob. I don't see it. You know, a 4-drop, very different than a 2-drop for those style decks, and that it does, you know, hit your opponent as well, but does give them the card draw. So I just don't see this making a big impact in Legacy. And here's my pick for kind of a little goofy, doesn't look like much at first, sleeper card from the set. High Priest of Penance. This is like Death Touch on crack. I mean, whenever it's dealt damage, destroy non-land permanent, so you get that that effect, that you know, removal effect. Imagine swinging into this on turn 2 after one of your lands got wastelanded and your remaining basic is going to get blown up if you throw your Tarmogoyf at this guy. I just think it clogs up the board significantly, and I expect him to, you know, either go farming or find people untapped basics, you know, Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, because lightning bolting this guy, just start swinging into him. Not only is he gonna, you know, take away the combat step for that guy and soak up the damage, but it's gonna come back and blow up your favorite permanent. You know, a nice Vindicate effect. So I don't know. I think Vindicate on a stick on a creature, interesting combo. We'll see if this makes its way into decks and what effect it has. But this is my pick for Legacy Sleeper of the pack. Anyway, that's it for Gatecrash, and as always, thanks for listening.